Happy Sunday. Happy Mother's Day, everybody.
So we're going to, start to talk about Mother's Day and look at some scriptures about Mother's Day. So I'd like to open with a word of prayer. Father, thank you that we're here, and thank you for every single person that's here today. Father, I ask that you would speak to every person here, really what they need to hear, exactly what they need to hear. I ask that all of us would leave this morning closer to you. May the Bible be our guide and our compass. May we be everything the book says that we can be by the grace of God, as we're pointed to Jesus, who is with us every step of the way, and it's in whose name we pray, and everyone agreed by saying. So I want to begin by showing you a picture. This is my mom. This is my mom here, Roberta Kaiser at the time of the Empire Kaiser. And none of that flowed down to her son, but at least she experienced that. But I show you the picture because you look at that and you think like, man, looks like she had a good life. And at that point in her life, she did have a good life. But in the ensuing years, it did not go well. And I don't really want to unpack that, but let me just say that at that point in her life, she had the world by the tail. But it went sideways really fast and really deep, really bad. And so I did her funeral. But I show you the picture to say this, is that Mother's Day is a day that is filled with a lot of emotions. And when I look at the picture of my mom, I remember those days, but I remember the days that weren't so wonderful too. So I want to have an honest conversation, and I want to unpack that a little bit there, because the reality is that Mother's Day can be wonderful for some and not so wonderful for others. And Mother's Day can be very hard. I was talking to somebody this week and whose mother doesn't live that far away from her house, and I said, "Oh, so you're going to see your mother?" And she said, "No." I'm just going to leave it right there. I'm not going to ask why. She just says, "No, I'm not." And so we want to pause for a moment. We want to acknowledge that Mother's Day can be challenging, that that the room can be filled with pain. And there are those that we know that there are women that they have dreams in their heart that they would have a family, but the dream is on hold. It's like that the pause button has been pushed and they don't know if the dream is ever going to come to expression. There are the other moms that have had miscarriages, other moms that there's a seat missing at the table when they have lunch this afternoon, and they will relive the anguish of that. Other mothers have moms that have debilitating diseases, maybe memory issues, health issues. Other moms, the relationship with their mother, it's strained. And so others still have a daughter who was a mother, and this number's in the millions, that can no longer be a mother because of CPS intervened, or drugs intervened, or death intervened. And now grandparents have the privilege and the honor of raising children, but was really intended for the mother to do that is not doing. And there's pain there. So we've gathered here together on Mother's Day to acknowledge that there's a wide spectrum. And I just want to say, before I say anything to you, unpacking the scripture, I want to say that I understand with respect to the disappointment that I experienced with my mother. And so there's a spectrum of oceans of emotions that can be in the room, and it's okay. And the holiday has a way of supercharging that, of making that even more real and more something that we have to deal with. So we want to acknowledge that. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the scriptures. And I specifically want to talk to you about two things. I want to talk to the moms, and it's good for the dads to listen in. A lot of the principles I'm going to talk about are transferable, but I'm going to talk specifically about moms and grandmothers, great-grandmothers, about biological children that you have and the potential impact all of your life that you could have on them. And then secondly, I'm going to talk outside that circle. I'm going to talk about stand-in moms or mentor moms or whatever step moms and non-biological moms, and the impact that spiritual moms that you can have for the rest of your life, and give us specific examples from the scriptures about that. So we're going to look at women who have had impact on their children and beyond their children. So I'm going to draw your attention to 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. Paul now is writing to his young mentoree, his young protege, his son in the faith, Timothy, and he says this: I remember, when I think about you, I remember you, Timothy, that you are a man of faith. And I remember your faith, that it was genuine, that it was sincere, that it was authentic. I remember your genuine faith. Okay, then he says, now watch, here's where it came from your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice. So he's tracing that back, and he observed that here, that first filled or lived in your grandmother and Lolo, and now it lives in you also. So I want to talk about that, because Timothy didn't grow up in a vacuum. All he did was become a pastor, like under the tutelage of the Apostle Paul. And now Timothy here, he caught faith from the great example, okay, of someone we don't even know their name. All we know is it's Rufus, kind of a funny name, but his mother there, okay? And so, but we're going to talk about it in just a moment. So they had an immense influence on him. He saw their genuine faith, and he could not escape their example. There was a reality of Jesus that permeated their lives, and then that reality of Jesus overflowed and permeated his life. So, and that shaped him. So what I want to make the point about is that you mothers, grandmothers, mother figures, you can shape the lives of others by your example, by your words here. And they had an immense influence. One parent, one grandparent. Where was the dad? We don't know, but he went AWOL, or he died, or he tapped out. We don't know. But Timothy saw their genuine faith in God, and he said, I want to be like mom. And I want to be like Lolo. And so they pointed him to Jesus by their example and by their words. So he saw in them their deep-rooted faith. And it stirred him. It pointed him to Christ. And so he observed this, and he wanted to do likewise. And so their faith came to him through their life, through the teaching him the scriptures there. So I want to remind you of this. All that to say this is that the women in the house, your work is not done. Your work is not done. And so you have people here that God has placed in your life that you could still influence, you could mentor, you could inspire, you could encourage. And I want to affirm this with all that is within me, that your role is exceedingly important. Your role is exceedingly important. And so listen to me here, that your example could influence generations. And watch. You may not even see it in your lifetime. You may not see it in your lifetime, but you don't know the power of your example and how it points people to Christ. So secondly, I want to point this out to you in Romans chapter 13. I got ahead of myself a little bit. And so that is, and again, I want to speak now beyond the biological world. I want to speak to the world of relationships that women have with women. I'm talking women to women, girlfriend to girlfriend, girls to girls. I want to talk about that because it's unpacked here. So the Apostle Paul, here's what he's doing. The greatest theological doctrinal mind that's ever existed on the planet now pushes the pause button and steps back from all the bastion of theology and doctrine that is the book of Romans. And then in chapter 16, he begins to process and ponder and think about and consider all the people in his life that have been an influence in his life, all the people that he's intersected with. And he comes up with about a couple dozen names, and he begins to list each one of them, and he'll say, greet them. And so now, verse 13, he says, greet, funny name, Rufus. This guy's got it going on. God is real. Jesus is real to him. Chosen in the Lord. And then he says, and his mother. And then this very insightful comment here. Watch, what's it say on the count of three? Read it together. 1, 2, 3. Who? Whoa. Whoa. Think about that. Who are we talking about? We're talking about the most influential Christ follower in the history of the world. And a woman that wasn't his mother has been a mother to me. There's a lot there. We need to talk about that. Because there's a lot of women in the room. You can influence other people like this woman here, and I want to talk about that. And so another translation reads, his mother who has always treated me like a son. Oh, in your relational world. So we're talking about here. And so we don't know exactly what this looked like, but being the mother of the apostle, we can only imagine, we can only speculate, and I don't know. But I'm going to suggest to you that he was in her home. I don't know where else she would be a mother to him, but in her home. I would speculate that in his travels that there was a time she cooked for him. I would imagine that there was a time in his troubles he could unload like only a son can unload to a mother and get her perspective. I've listened to this for decades. My sons unloading on their mother weekly. So I imagine that happened with Paul. That he shared things with her he couldn't share with anyone else. And so there was many conversations, many intimate conversations, many life-giving conversations, many meals around the table, and this unnamed woman became a mother to the most famous Christian that's ever lived. And Paul then, when he's writing about all the people that have influenced him, he singles out this unnamed woman, Rufus's mother, who has been like a mother to me, who has impacted me behind the scenes in an immensely positive way. And she filled the role of being a mother in my life. I can't talk about my mom because I'll cry. And yesterday, preparing the message, I'm weeping, thinking about my mom. But there's been other women, because my mom, Taft shared before in the green room, he said, I was born an orphan and then I had a mom. And I thought, I was born with a mom and then I became an orphan. And so, but what God does is he brings a Rufus's mother into our lives. And I have had multiple mothers like that have been mother figures to me. And I am partly who I am because of them. For example, when I went off to school in Oklahoma, a woman named Shirley. This happened to me every 4 or 5 years. Wherever I would go, a woman would appear, and they would be a ferocious mother to me like Shirley, about 4'8". And I didn't know, I was new to Oklahoma and everything. I get invitations to do things and go places, and I didn't know. I kind of run everything through her. Man, there was times I ran things by her, and she was like, not over my dead body. You are not going there. I'd be like, okay, Shirley, like, whatever you say. Whatever you say. And in retrospect, she kept me from danger. There was dangerous places that I would have naively gone as a young man. And I should not have gone, but I was so stupid and naive. I didn't know, man, and she just intervened and she kept me from harm. And that has happened to me really throughout my entire life. And we're talking about a Rufus's mom, and I want to talk to you, all of the women in the house, because watch this. Rufus's mom that impacted the greatest Christian that ever lived, she was just being mom. Regular mom. Not a superstar. She was anonymous. She was behind the scenes. She was not a hero of the faith. She's not in Hebrews chapter 11. She was never in the spotlight. Just a regular mom who was a mother to me that impacted his life. She played a prominent role. And all she did is she had a great impact on the apostle, and she was part of the world-changing, history-changing movement through the apostle Paul. She was central and part of that. So I want to say to you, and I want to open up your thinking, that she did it by being a spiritual mom, not his biological mom. All she did was be regular. Invest in him, listen to him, care for him, pour into him, encourage him, bless him, believe in him, and it changed his life. The greatest Christian that has ever lived. Here's what I'm concerned about. From the bottom of my heart, I am so concerned with our generation. Our generation is in trouble. Young people, by and large, they need more than anything these type of people. Normal people, regular people, not famous for their blogging or their ministry or anything. Regular people like she was, behind the scenes, simple, godly, humble, and just talked to the apostle. And so I'm concerned that we don't have enough of this, that we desperately need this. We desperately, as a pastor, I can't tell you strongly enough how much we need this in culture today. And I'm speaking to all the women and all the moms in the room, grandmothers, you could do this. You have it within you to do this. So I want to give you three thoughts on how to be effective as a spiritual mother. And I recognize some people here, you were invited, and you're like, I don't even know that I want to be that. I recognize that, but you could be if you want to, and much of the room wants to. And so I want to give you 3 points about how you can thrive, not just survive, but how you could thrive as a spiritual mother. And the first point is this, is you prioritize Jesus, or prioritize being with Jesus. And I know that sounds overly simplistic. I recognize that. But here's what I want you to see, or what you want to feel, or what you want to imagine happened. That here's Rufus's grandmother that we don't even know her name. And what happened is that she prioritized being with Jesus to the degree that overflowed into his life, and it impacted him in such a powerful way. We can sometimes prioritize doing things for Jesus or blogging about Jesus. But she repented of her sin before Jesus and was real with Jesus and was with Jesus. And I have no doubt that impacted the Apostle Paul. Secondly, if you want to be effective, you want to thrive as a spiritual mother, you want to prioritize faithfulness in the small things. And by that I mean this, is that you could imagine how many small things that she did for the Apostle Paul. Small things like just listening to him, maybe giving him sage wisdom here and there. Just being a mother to somebody that she could see that he needed a mom. That his biological mom couldn't be there. So I'm talking about that moms, that you could be a friend to a younger mom or a younger friend. I'm talking women on women, girlfriends on girlfriends. Not going to big conferences. I'm talking about going to have coffee and mentoring and discipling and having life-giving impact on the culture today. It is so greatly needed. And so, thirdly, I want us to encourage you that the spiritual mothers such as Rufus' mom did with Paul, and how she thrived in that. She prioritized pursuing people, in this case, the Apostle Paul. But I just want to point out to you that she took initiative. She pursued the Apostle Paul. I mean, he knew that he was welcome in her life. He's not going to force the issue. You know what I'm talking about? When you meet like parents or adults, and you're just like, you can tell, like, I'm just not really welcome. Well, he knew he was welcome. And so she prioritized, and she was open to a relationship with someone that was not her biologic son, And she didn't know who he was going to be. She didn't know he was going to write 2/3 of the Bible. She didn't know he was going to become the most famous Christian that ever lived. He was just Paul at that point, getting beat up and stoned and struggling and all that and being in jail. That's all he was back then. And yet she prioritized pursuing a relationship with him. And so I want to encourage you that in your relational circle, you don't really even have to go looking for it. Just look in your circle there, the opportunity maybe to express who you are as a woman, a Christ-following woman in someone else's life. I'm thinking primarily women on women here. So what I'm telling you, the culture desperately, desperately, desperately needs this. What is happening here? So as I prayed and processed about what to talk about over Mother's Day, and I sweat bullets, to be completely transparent. I sweat bullets, but I felt this is what I need to say. I felt like I heard God's voice, and this is what I need to share with you. So for whatever it's worth to you, this is my heart to your heart on Mother's Day. God bless you.